the mind, head, heart, or even or everywhere? This is one of those very interesting questions which modern Buddhists and well, I would say the scientists are the ones asking this question, and this, informed Buddhists are also wondering what's going on. And those who study early Buddhism, they know there is this question about the location of the mind, right? So we're going to study this from the start, as it were. So let's start with slide 1. Now, the interesting thing about the Buddha's teaching is that he does not mention the brain in his teachings. What does this mean, and what is the significance, and then what happened after that? So let's look at this slide from the Girimananda Sutta, A1060, all right? And then here, if you want to look up the sutta, you go to the website. Our website is here, down here, dhammafera.org, and look for this number, and you can get this sutta where we have this diagram, which I'm going to show you. Now, okay, this is the Buddha's teaching on the what is called the 31 body parts. This is the practice on the what's called the impurities. It's a kind of meditation to overcome lustfulness, and the monks are supposed to do this. So this first set, you notice there are 5 here: head, hairs, body hair, nail, teeth, skin. Okay, this is one set, and I've highlighted this because in the Indian way of grouping ideas, they use the last word to name the group. So this is called the skin 5. Pacha Panchaka, the skin 5. The skin is the 5th, all right? This is what I am. I head, hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin. This is the first thing the monks learn. And of course, for those of you who know some Dhamma, you know this is a reflection on the earth element. Then the second set is a set of 5 again, another pentad: flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys. Okay, so this is the last item, and so this is called the kidney. Of course, you don't use S in this case, kidney 5, all right? Yeah, in fact, you don't have to have the S here. So, and of course, this is the earth element, right? Then you have the third set: heart, liver, membranes around the lungs, spleen, and the lungs. Okay, so you have the lungs 5. Okay, this is also earth element. These are the solid aspects of our body. And then you have the large intestine, small intestines, stomach contents, feces. Now, not very pleasant, but that's the reality. We have all this inside us. Okay, and there's a blank here. So I'll leave this blank as a bit of a cliffhanger for a while. And that's the number is 4 here. Okay, of course, we don't call it feces 4. It doesn't sound very nice. So here again is the earth element. So this is a reflection on the impurities of the body. And then you have a 5th set. 5th set is something different. It's a new set: bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat. And the 6th one is fat. So this is called the fat 6. This is the water element, liquid. Okay, and then you have number 6. Again here, this is liquid, okay, or water element: tears, grease, saliva, snot, oil of joints, urine. So this is a urine 6. So if you total all this up, you get 31. All right, so this is the empty part. Just watch it. Something interesting is going to happen. All right, so that's what happened at one point. So after a little, I think perhaps when the Buddha was still alive, or when the suttas were being compiled, especially the 5th Nikaya. Okay, you see, the interesting point is this: in the first 4 Nikayas, the Digha Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, Sangyutta Nikaya, and Anguttara Nikaya, this is the set that you see, the 31 body parts. Okay, for example, in this famous Girimananda Sutta, all right? And you also see this in the Maharahula Sutta and so on, the many suttas with these 31 parts of the body. So this group of really learned scholars, learned Buddhist monks, who probably are scholars also, they thought, oh, there's something missing here. right? And not only missing, you have this set with ending with feces. Not very nice. Okay, so what should we do about this? Another thing that the trouble then was this: you have all this. We'll come to this details a little later. I'll just summarize for you. In our sense organs, our faculties, like seeing is based on the eye, all right? Hearing based on the ear, smelling on the nose, tasting on the tongue, and feeling on the body, right? Now, the Buddha listed all these things, all right? You have the sense faculties and then the activities or the sensing. But when it comes to the mind, the Buddha does not mention any location. It's just a blank. So they were wondering, where is the mind located? Now, this is the question, and it is the blank they're trying to fill in. So the Abhidhamma scholastics, as they're called, they love filling in the blanks. They're completists. Okay, they want to present the Dhamma in a very systematic way, even in a scientific way, if you like. Okay, so let's see what happens then. So they decided that they could have the mind or the brain, if you like, located in the heart. Okay, so this yellow square here, the word should be brain, matalunga. Okay, now I've put the word heart here simply to, it is in red, so just, and also italicized to show you that it's not meant to be there. The people in those days, the popular idea is that the mind, or whatever we think about, is located right in the center of the heart. It is called Hadayawatu, the heart base. Okay, so the term is given here. Okay, so the Abhidhamma people decide to do this, to locate the mind in the heart base, or right in the center of the heart. Okay, so here you have the brain, Matalunga, all right? So making it 32. That's how we get 32 parts of the body. But in the suttas, only 31 are mentioned. 32, the set of 32 is canonical, but it is not found in any of the suttas in the Nikayas, 4 Nikayas. It's only found in the 5th Nikaya, in only 2 suttas. One is in the Khuddaka, that is the first of the 15 books of the Khuddaka Nikaya, in the Khuddaka, and the other is in another of the 15 books in the Khuddaka Nikaya, an Abhidhamma book called Patisambhida Magga. It's a very difficult book. Both these books have already been translated into English. You can read them. If you need these books, just let me know. I'll send them to you. And I think the commentaries have been translated. Okay, so it's only mentioned twice in the 5th Nikaya, quite late during the early Buddhist period. So this is the work of the Abhidhamma people, right? The Abhidhamma scholars. Now, then we have the scientists, the modern scientists. They locate the mind in the brain. Okay. Now, of course, this is quite a little complicated now. You have the mind in the brain, and then the Abhidhamma people say the brain, the mind is in the heart. So you have 2 differing opinions. So this is one of those problems, and we try to be scientific. Science may disprove us. This is one of those scary things that may happen, which I've written about this in the SD60 series. In a sense, Abhidhamma tries to be scientific, tries to be exact, even down to atoms and very exact timing and so on. But the thing about being scientific is that if you study the philosophy of science, for something to be scientific, it must be falsifiable. Meaning, you can prove it wrong. In a very simple way of explaining it, science can be proven wrong, and that's how science progresses. this Newton came up with some ideas about light, and then some modern scientists proved him wrong or corrected him, if you like. So it went on like that. Okay? So every generation, new scientists will come and prove the previous generation wrong. So if you say Abhidhamma is scientific, or for the matter, if you say Buddhism is scientific, it actually sends shivers down my spine. I get horripilation. I get very scared. I say, oh, no, don't say that. Because if you say that, then you must be prepared to falsify Buddhism. Now, we don't want that to happen, isn't it? I mean, imagine if suddenly we realize, oh, it's not Four Noble Truths, and there are only 3 or 2. I mean, it's going to be very messy, right? So we should not say Buddhism is scientific. We can say Abhidhamma is scientific if you like, because Abhidhamma is not part of the Dhamma Vinaya taught by the Buddha. So my point is, you have this kind of problems when you try to make it scientific. So here, Abhidhamma say something the Buddha did not teach. He says, okay, you know that the mind is in the heart base, it's in the heart itself, Hadaya's heart. And the scientists say it's in the brain, right? So that's the problem. Now, I'm not going to comment about this problem. You can leave it as it is. There's a big problem. So we just keep this in mind, and let's see what happens next. So this idea of extended mind is a new idea. In a way, these people who came up with this idea of the extended mind, they tried to avoid both the materialist views of the scientists who say the mind is located in the brain, and the Abhidhamma people who say the mind is located in the heart. So, and what is interesting is, in a sense, this is something I've been waiting for a long time, to get the scientists to talk this way, because this is, in many ways, this is what the Buddha himself is also talking about in the suttas, although not in explicit terms, but it is there. If you understand, if you accept it, understand and accept the idea of an excellent mind, then when you read the suttas, you find very much easier to understand, very much to know what the Buddha is talking about, and also easier to practice. So this is the advantage of understanding this idea of the extended mind. So here I'm going to use some simple ideas to show you what is meant by extended mind. So like how we travel, okay? Now, we need a map, right? So a map is a kind of a diagram. You must have gone to that place in order to map it, or at least seen it from afar, and you draw this map, and then from there you know how to move around. So what you're doing is you are transferring your mind, your ideas onto paper. So this extended mind always has something to do with your memory. You are transferring your memory into symbolic terms, and you look at it, you won't forget it. You remember what to do the next time. And other people also can use that same information, which has been transmitted onto something external, onto paper. So this is what we do, and this is what happened to us that allow us to be civilized, to become humans, this extending our mind outward. So this is one way we do it, right? By using maps, right? The next thing is, this actually I should have started with this one first. The stars is number 1. Our ancestors, even today, people living in the remote Polynesian islands, even in Hawaii, they learn to find their way in the open ocean by the stars. Of course, here you see this famous Big Dipper and Little Dipper, right? And you have this 2 stars. These are called the pointer stars, Merak and Dubhe. And if you're in the northern hemisphere, okay, you look for this. They're quite bright, these stars. You look for these 2, and then you draw a straight line, and then you see this very bright star. This is Polaris. This is the North Star. So this is north-south, right? So you know where to go from this kind of sky map, star map, if you like. Of course, it's a bit more complicated than this, but those natives, those ancient people, they know just what to do. From Singapore, it's a bit difficult to see the North Star. You only see it in the horizon. And as you go further south below the equator, this North Star begins to disappear because it's, kind of the Earth is curved, but it doesn't matter because not many of us use the stars to travel in the city. But this is what is ancient people, even the people living in remote islands today still do. They extend their knowledge to the skies. Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? To be able to extend your mind as far as the stars, right? So now you begin to understand why the Buddha didn't mention the mind is in the brain or in the heart, because the mind is everywhere. Wherever, as far as you can see, as far as you can hear, what you can smell, taste, touch, and think also. So you begin to see here the immensity and the profundity, the depth of this kind of idea, which is still, the Buddha didn't talk much about it, but the teaching is based on this basic assumption. Now, then we also travel, the pilot will use autopilot, especially if they keep traveling the same route, and they have rules about flying. Planes have to keep a certain ceiling and so on. So instead of, sitting there watching the open skies, nothing you see in front of you. I mean, it's not like the highway, lots of planes flying around, be very dangerous. You just have this open sky. So the pilot will put his plane on autopilot. So you'd be surprised when you fly overseas, within Singapore and London or elsewhere, you find your plane will go on autopilot. So here again, because we humans, the scientists, have been really familiar with flying and familiar with sky routes and maps and countries. And of course, this flying machines, these aeroplanes, are able to create this program that can guide the plane to keep to that route as to save the route to reach our destination. So this is we extend our mind onto this, to the plane, so the plane can fly. I think it won't be too long before you get robots. We can trust robots to even fly this plane. So that's another time. Okay? And here we have the GPS. It's very often you see GPS being used. You probably use it yourself. The taxis here use it. All right. I remember once I had this friend. He was not sure where of the route, so he made use of this GPS. It was a talking GPS. It was really lovely. You have, okay, you chose a woman's voice. It's a very sweet voice telling you what to do. It's almost like the mother-in-law sitting in the back seat telling you, okay, go straight now, turn left, another 100 yards, turn right, and so on. And then suddenly, this voice in the GPS says, you are underwater. I said, oh no. Then I look around, I said, we're on the bridge. Then I realize what the GPS is trying to tell us, that the GPS actually is out of date. When the GPS was made, there was no bridge, you see. There was this water, this sea, or this river in front of us, and we're going across it, and the GPS says, oh, you can't cross. There's no bridge at that time when the GPS was made, so we are underwater. So it's quite a humorous experience, quite scary at first. But my point here is that you find this kind of extension of the brain also needs to be updated, right? So it is centered in our own mind, but we learn, we extend our mind outwards, and you get this feedback, okay, back and forth like that. So this is an example how our mind extends itself and makes our life more comfortable, more effective, more systematic. Now, in fact, even now, right now, while I'm sitting here talking with you on this Zoom, it's amazing and how our minds are all extended to each other. Our minds are connected. You're listening to me, and I can see many of you on the screen, and you're hearing me, and I'm communicating with you. So you find now with this modern science, we can connect together on a mental level right now in real time. And that's amazing, isn't it? So in other words, we can, even right now, extend our minds, and we should do that. In many ways, Buddhism is about how to extend our mind in a proper and wholesome way. So, how do we extend our mind? Firstly, when we see something, our mind is extended to uh, something bright, a shape, a color, right? So something from outside is coming into our eyes, and we form ideas about it. So something from outside is coming to our mind. So that's what we think. But the reality is, it is our mind looking outwards. And we only know what we are looking if we have been trained, we have been informed about it before. So I'll talk more about that a little later, because now I'll just say how the mind extends itself through the eye, to seeing forms, light, forms, colors, then to the ear, to sounds, vibrations, hearing music, and so on. But remember, we have to create music, right? So you have this back and forth kind of extension and connection going on. And this is all the work of the mind. And also, we must remember time. Someone wrote a beautiful piece a few hundred years ago, and it is recorded in a systematic way, in musical notes, in sound tapes. And you can hear this being played again. So you have this mind extended to time. Isn't it amazing? And then you find the mind it extends itself to the nose, through smell. The mind knows, the mind can sense danger from smell, like smoke from some fire burning somewhere, or some nice cooking, and then you want to go to the stall and buy the food and so on. Right? So you get this information through smell, and then you of course taste, the tongue, right? We taste things, and of course as we grow older, the taste buds don't work so well, you know. So be very careful as we age, not to take more salt than we need, not too much sugar and things like that, right? So, but this is the extension of our being outside in terms of food and taste. And then, of course, there is the body. Here is we feel the temperature, we feel hardness, softness around us, whether a place is safe to step on or not. So this is the working with the body. Our body connects with everything around us, and we're able to walk, move around, sit quietly under a tree and meditate, right? So this an extension of our body. And what I've said is, of course, stated in the suttas. It's called a Sabha Sutta. It's a very short sutta, a very simple sutta, S35.23, and it has been translated as SD 7.1. The Buddha uses the word the all, Sabha, right? Basically, the Buddha is saying the 12 sense bases are the all. This sutta has been posted online for you. You can download it afterwards and look at it. There are notes there also. All right, here I'm just kind of summarizing for you. So here, the Buddha says, well, what is the all? This is what the Buddha says. What is the all? Right? The I and forms. The I is the faculty, and then you have what the I experiences, forms. Okay? Now, the Pali word for I here is chakku. Chakku is the usual word for eye, but the sense it has is that of a functioning eye, the eye faculty. Whereas there is another word in Pali, akhi, which means simply the eyeball, the eye by itself, right? But of course, like in Malay, we say mata, which is both the organ as well as faculty. But in Pali, you have just the organ itself, and you have the faculty, the working eye, the conscious eye, if you like. So the Pali uses the word chakku, right? Meaning that there is consciousness behind it, and then it's its forms, okay? And you have the ear faculty to be correct, right? So although I say ear, I say eye here, you have to add the word faculty yourself. This is the conscious eye, conscious ear, and then it is aware of, it makes sense of sounds, okay? Perhaps I should say it's aware of sounds. It's the mind that makes sense of it. So that's another story I will talk about a little later, all right? So you have this, what's called the perception level of the senses, and then you have the conception level on the mind levels. That's another story I'll come to in a while. Now, so what is the third of the all? You have the nose and smells, right? So here again, you have this functioning nose, this faculty that can detect molecules of smell. And of course, there's the tongue. They detect the molecule of taste, all right? And then 5, the body feels, touches, temperature, and so on. And number 6 here is the mind, okay? I've highlighted mind because this mind is a special organ. It's also an organ. It is what makes sense of all the other 5 senses, if you like. Because without the mind, the eye still see, but we don't make sense of it. We do not know what it is. Imagine the baby. The baby has eyes, baby sees these things, but the baby can't make much of it. So we teach the baby, say, oh, this is a teddy bear, this is a something, and so on. So this baby learns, and later on we will see, dependent on rising, we'll see how the baby learns things by we extending our consciousness to the baby, and then the baby accepting it, and the baby is conditioned by our consciousness. So our extending of the mind is going all the time. Even right now, I'm extending my mind to you by showing you this diagram, and you look at the words, and then I'm looking at the words, I'm talking about it, and you're listening to me, you're looking at all these things. So imagine the networking of our mental extension is amazing. We have learned to go this far, and that's called learning. That's how we were able to do so many things, build things, and write stories, and discuss philosophy and talk religion, even get awakened by learning the Buddha's teaching, right? So we have the mind and the mind objects, right? So these mind objects, of course, can be any of these or all of these other 5 sense bases: form, sound, smell, taste, touches. And the mind can also conceive its own mind objects. So it's got its own objects, right? So you can imagine how complicated this is. All this I have discussed in our SD60, volume F, SD60.1 F, in case you're interested, all right? So here you are. You have, in this Sabha Sutta, the Buddha says, this is the all, the eye and forms, the ear and sounds, the nose and smells, the tongue and taste, the body and touches, the mind and mind objects. The Buddha said, if anyone else tries to say there's more than this person is going to feel trouble, going to get into a lot of difficulties because there's nothing else. So what the Buddha is talking about here is these are our sense organs, our tools of knowing, all right? And these are the objects of knowledge. The sense bases, the 6 sense bases, forms, sounds, smells, taste, touches, mind objects, are what we can know. Okay, this is how we know things, our tools, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. And here, this is what we can know. This is our knowledge. Every kind of knowledge will be either in terms of form, that is light, sounds, smells, taste, touches, or thoughts, mind objects. So the Buddha does mention the extended mind, but without using the word, of course. But here in this short sutta, the Buddha gives the gist of this idea. So do read this sutta. It's available right now online. Just download it. We're going to have a short break after this, and then I'll come back, continue my talk. Now, the whole of our body, when we say our body, it is the conscious body. And the sutta often uses the term savinyanaka kaya, conscious body. It's not just a body, it is a conscious body, because this body depends on the extensions that it connects with in order to know things and to live. Now, we all have a handphone, right? Now, once you have a handphone, what do? You record phone numbers on it. You record, you have your appointments, right? All my hospital appointments are in my phone. And there are lots of other information. You have photos and things. So when we say an extended mind, we're actually also referring to this phone. This phone is an extension of our mind because it has a lot of our memories stored in the phone itself. Those, in other words, you don't have to keep it in your mind. Of course, if you can meld the phone to your body, you will have those memories. But here, these memories have been transferred into the phone. Of course, there is a problem too. If you lose the phone, you may lose those things too. So in a sense, you still need to have that memory inside you. Then that's not all. Wherever we go, we travel, we look at places, all those landmarks that we see have our memories on it. We say, okay, I remember this building. It has got this sign, this color, right? So you have this information on this building. So whatever we experience have got this kind of memory on it. And our senses read these memories, which are stored out there in the various things you see around you in the form of forms, shapes, colors, in the form of sounds. Right? You hear a car, you say, oh, be careful, there's a car coming, right? By way of smell, taste, touch, right? And of course, your own memory within you. So we have this form, which is the body, right? So this is the first of the aggregates. And we can speak of our being, our body-based existence as having, by way of the 6 elements, if you like. Now, you have heard of the 4 elements. We're made up of earth, water, fire, wind, right? Earth are the solid parts of our body, like head, hair, body hair, nail, teeth, skin, bones, what is left over when you cremate a body. And then you, by the way, they have something new in Singapore. They call it aquamation. Aquamation is where instead of cremating the body, they dissolve this body, this corpse, in a tank of water with alkali in it. Of course, it cuts down on the carbon emissions, and you don't need to use this heat. Right? So it dissolves the body, but you still get the earth element left behind. And then you have this earth, fire, you have fire, earth, water. Water is the liquids in your body. And then fire is the heat, decaying of the body. And then, of course, there is wind, the breath you take in, the breath you take out. So the 4 elements. The 5th element is space. There are spaces within your body and space around us. And then the 6th one is consciousness itself. So it's the 6th element. So we are made up of the 6 elements, right? So this is a kind of an overview of our existence. 5 of it forms the body, and the 6th one is the mind. Or we can talk of our existence, our being, in terms of the 6 senses, right? These are 6 ways we connect, we extend ourselves to the world outside. It's the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, which I've been talking about so far. So Now let's look at how we exist in extended form through the 5 aggregates. How does this work, right? Now, first of all, we feel things. We feel our chair, is it comfortable or not, and our room, is the temperature all right, you know? So here feelings is to know things. To know things is to either like something or dislike something or simply not care about it. So feeling is always involved in knowing. They kind of go together, all right? So how do we like, dislike, or ignore things? By looking at them, and then there's a memory stored on them, which is especially for us to remember, recall, and react, right? So there is something else at work that is called perception, right? Perception is where we recognize what we see. To recognize means there is this memory of it, in this object we see, hear, smell, taste, or touch. And then we recall, say, oh, we have experienced this in the past, right? So we know what is this? We call this a car, or we call this a tree, because we have experienced those things before. So now we extend that knowledge outside us again. So that's called perception, right? We recognize something from a past memory. We project it onto this present reality outside of us, before us. And then we start thinking about it. Okay, I like this place. I'm going to sit here. Or I don't like this tree. I'm going to cut it down, which is not very good, you know. So you create karma that way by thinking, by deciding. And these are called formations because we form karma, which are good, bad, or neutral. Okay. And of course, there is consciousness. All these feelings, perception, formations, they work together, and they feed this our consciousness through the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So all this together is how we connect with the world outside, how our extended mind works with everything around us. So this is through the 5 aggregates. And this consciousness is the result of us following all these things, right? I mean, look at the baby. This little baby is helpless on its little bed, and then we dangle toys, right? We're holding it quite far away from, away from the baby, and the baby looks at it, the baby touches it, the baby munches it, and so on. So you find that there's this externality, there's this extension of knowledge, and this baby reaches out to it. Right? So you see this, we are trying to extend our knowledge all the time to babies, to new people. When we talk with our friends, this is what we're doing. We are extending ourselves to others through our actions and through our speech, the 3 doors of karma. So whatever we experience have got these 3 characteristics, right? And this is taught in the Dhamma Niyama Sutta, A 3.134. So we all are familiar with the 3 characteristics, but let us try to see this and understand them in connection with the extended mind. So first of all, we know the teaching everything is impermanent. Actually, the right words is all formations change, or all formations are impermanent. We don't say all things are impermanent, not in the suttas. The sutta says sabbe sankhara anicca. All formations are impermanent. All right. So these formations are basically ideas we create of things around us. And those things themselves, they arise through our making, our projection, our fabrication. Okay, this is called sankhara. Sankhara means put together, constructed. So because they are put together, they change. So everything that is existing out there through cause and effect, you have to change. This makes very good sense. It's common sense, because if things don't change, you can never know them. We know things because things change. If the language has only one letter, a permanent letter, just R, so A, another R, and that's all, you cannot know anything. But you got A, B, C, and they form words. And you use them to express ideas and so on. So you have language, right? Because language are where words change, sounds change. And through change, we know things, we learn things. Then the suttas teach us the second universal truth is that all formations are suffering. Again, the word formations are there. Sabbe sankhara dukkha. Okay? Here again, another mistake. It should be a macron over the A. All right, this is diagram 7. All formations will not satisfy us because they're put together, they change. So we can use them, but we cannot stick to them. We cannot really collect them and own them, because they will get destroyed anyway, right? So not to accept this changing world means suffering. Not to accept the truth, the noble truth, brings us suffering. Not to accept reality brings us suffering, right? So we're extending all the senses into the world out there, and we think that nothing changes, then we will suffer as a result. Now, non-self is a bit tricky, right? This is the difficult one. Now here, the Pali changes. Pali says, sabbe dhamma anatta. Right? See again, the Pali should be anatta. The last vowel should be long. All things, here dhamma, things, are non-self. In other words, there's nothing abiding. They're all interconnected. There's no self. Nothing fixed about them. So this non-self means everything is interconnected, dependent on it, interdependent on each other. So these are the three universal laws or characteristics, if you like, that shows how we connect with the world out there, and what we expect to experience, to notice, and it's the nature of this experience are described in these 3 words. Of course, this is I put it in a quick way. We have to reflect on this. We have to experience this as we move around in life. Now, let's see, how do we understand the extended mind through the Four Noble Truths? Now, we often think of the Four Noble Truths as like some philosophical statements, even dogma, whether you believe them or don't believe them. But it's much more than that. The Four Noble Truths are not dogmas. They are not mere beliefs, right? What are they then? Now, we find the Four Noble Truth expressed in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta as 56.11. It has been called the Buddha's first teaching. More correctly, we can say it is a record of the Buddha's first teaching. We do not know exactly what the Buddha said when he first taught the 5 monks, but the teaching of the truth are there, of course. What I'm saying is that the way you look at the structure of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, all those exact words and so on, it's unlikely they happen exactly like that, because this follows the oral tradition anyway. But the teachings are there, right? Surely the Buddha has taught those 5 monks much more than what is recorded in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, all right? But anyway, the point remains that these truths are not merely something to believe in, for us to believe in. So what do we do with them? We have to know the functions. of each of these Four Noble Truths, how they work, in other words, and how do we work with them, all right? So the first Noble Truth is that of suffering, that suffering exists, all right? And this is to be understood. In order to understand something, we have to live it, experience it, and see it outside of us, all around us and within us. We have to extend this understanding everywhere, right? So it is an experience. It's not just believing it. You have to experience it. If you do not understand and accept impermanence, you can never understand what suffering is. If you don't understand what suffering is, you will not learn and you will not be wise. We'll come back to this theme a little later. Now, the second point is, the second noble truth is the arising of suffering. I stopped using the word cause after I read Shakun Payutto in Tadan wrote about this. It says nothing causes suffering. Rather, when the conditions are there, this suffering arises. I mean, it's not right to say, for example, oil causes fire, because you can get oil, but you don't see fire coming out of it, you know. But oil is the condition that brings about fire. So if there's light, then there is fire. So that's the meaning of arising, rather than saying it's the cause of suffering, which is not exactly correct. So this arising of suffering should be abandoned. We should avoid it. We should keep away from it. In other words, we should not let it arise. That's the meaning here. We should not take the language too strictly. We have to understand the idea, all right? So we have to abandon this situation where the suffering will arise. So what does this mean? It means you have to avoid places where these situations, things out there where this suffering will arise. There's always this extension of the truth out there. Then the third noble truth, that is the ending of suffering, that is nirvana. And this nirvana is to be realized. You have to something that you must understand for yourself. Okay. So now the question is this: how do we do this? We'll look at it a little later in the next slide. Let me just explain to you the ideas first. Okay. So nirvana is to be realized. Notice you can't believe this, but you have to realize this. You have to know this, understand it, experience it. That's the meaning of realize. Now, the fourth noble truth is the way to the ending of suffering. And this path, a path is something we follow. Right? Although we talk of it as, yes, we have to walk this path, how we deal with people, how we deal with our environment. At the same time, we have to cultivate it within us too, right? So there is this connection outside, inside. So it's not mere belief. This is the fourth truth. So this body of ours, in other words, this conscious body, is our tool for awakening, our vehicle for liberation. And how does it work? It works through the five aggregates: form, feeling, perception, formation, consciousness. These are the way we know things, experience things, and we store this information, and we recognize this information, and we work with this information out there in here. So here we see the first truth is actually it's about the five aggregates we've been talking about, right? You have body is form, and then feeling, perception, formation, consciousness, they're the mind. So they work together and we get the conscious body, right? Then you have the second noble truth is craving. Here, craving means there is dependent arising. There are causes and effects. There are things out there, they come together, and then they make us want this and want that, right? So that's called dependent arising. So this one and two together, they constitute suffering, all right? Now, so it's something out there. right? We are looking for answers out there. We run after things out there, and that's when a craving will arise. Now, oh dear, there's a typo. It's the third noble truth, actually. It's the path, right? So here's slide 9. There's a typo here. The third noble truth is the path, and this is dependent ending. Dependent ending, where we break the cycle, where we learn, okay, we see this causes and effect, and we remove the cause, and there's no more effect, right? So that's dependent ending. And then here, I'm not wrong, actually. I've reversed the numbering. Okay, you notice there's a purpose here. I put the fourth noble truth as number 3, and then the third noble truth as number 4, nirvana. Okay, usually nirvana is number 3, right? We put it here. But here, nirvana is dependence ended. Okay, it's completely gone now. So we're happy and free, right? So here you see the Four Noble Truth sequence as 1, 2, 4, 3. This is the very ancient listing of the Four Noble Truth found in the Mahasalaya Tanika Sutta, for example. Not very common. Most of the sequencing 1, 2, 3, 4 is called a teaching model. This is the practice model. Okay. So this is what is in here, inside us. We end this suffering within us and through our minds, and we see nirvana with our minds, so to speak. So here we are. We put into a circle, into a diagram. It's very easy to remember this. There are 12 links. I wanted to put arrows here, actually, the long arrow and the short arrow, because what you get here with the number 12 here, we should put 12 at the top here, actually, all right? But anyway, it's like a clock, right? So this is our life clock, our cosmic clock, called dependent arising. Here we see our consciousness in extended in time over 3 lives, if you like: past life, present life, future life. So this is dependent arising, right? So we arise because of ignorance, and because we are ignorant, we create all kinds of acts through body, speech, and mind, right? So this black color is past karma, okay? And this green here are the present results. So because of our past karma, we now have new consciousness. And then with this consciousness, we look outside, we extend this consciousness and name things. And because we are able to name things, we recognize those things and we get ideas in our mind. So we remember it. So this is how we extend our consciousness, by naming things out there. We name roads, we name buildings, we name trees, and then people and places and so on. So that's name and form. Okay. And then our sense bases recognize this in different ways, right? And this is done through contact. In other words, our senses work with this external world and in different ways. So we sit comfortably on the ground, on the grass, and we smell the flowers, and we have a nice drink, and so on. So all our senses kind of connect to the universe out there, with the world out there. And we feel good, we feel happy because of that. Or when it's too hot, we don't feel comfortable. So you have pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, or neutral feeling if we are not really bothered about things around us. Either way, craving arises. Okay, here you have blue. This blue is future new karma, all right? So this craving is, we want to go back to that nice garden. We want to do something. We want to go shopping again. There's always this thing outside, extending our mind outside. There's this craving, and we keep on doing it. It's clinging, and this clinging makes us what we are. This is our existence, number 10. And then you have this future result here. We are reborn. We start all over again. And because we are reborn, it means we will decay, but we will pass away again and start all over again with 1 o'clock. So 1 to 12, all over, round and round we go on this cosmic clock of dependent arising. Now, I'm coming near the end already, for 1 or 2 more slides only. So here you see the same 12 o'clock of the dependent arising. And we're going to break this cycle. And we're going to start with ignorance. You can start with feeling also if you like. You can break it here also. So notice 1 o'clock, 6 o'clock. So we recognize because of ignorance there is suffering, or suffering leads to also causes fits of ignorance. So you see, if you study the Dhamma well, if you reflect on the teachings, you begin to understand suffering. You say, wow, all these things have been going on for as long as we can remember. Then we have faith in the Dhamma. We know this teaching is true, and we want to keep to it. We want to follow it. We want to teach it. Faith arises because we have wise attention, because we look around us. We see what's going on around us. Through our extended mind, we see all these things. We learn. The extended mind is about learning, right? And then we act wholesomely through moral virtue. So you can see everything is connected in this way with the world inside us, the world outside us. But here the keyword is faith. We know it works, and then when we keep on doing it because of our wise faith. And then you have this arrow, notice, is leading down to here again. We have same diagram actually, faith here, leading to a new cycle. And this is the breaking of the cycle. This is the dependent ending. All right. Here, because we have faith, we know we are right, and we feel right, then we are happy. Gladness arises. This gladness deepens into joy or zest, piti in meditation, and that gives us a peace of body and mind. And as a result, we feel very comfortable, very happy. And this, we smile in our practice to be happy, and that helps us to focus our mind, concentrate better. And a calm and clear mind welcomes knowledge and vision. Knowledge and vision, that means we know something is true out there, we see it, and here you are, we see it, vision. We know it and we see it. In other words, it's a fact. It's not merely something we imagine, but it's real, it's out there, and we know it. And here is another powerful word here. You only see this in the Dhamma, in Buddhism. Revulsion arises. It's not a negative word here at all. It's a natural information we're given. You see water, you're not going to jump in it unless you can swim, and you can't jump into the Jurong Lake anyway. They'll come and catch you, and you get into trouble. You can only watch the fishes and maybe touch the water, So okay, I cannot jump into this water. I should not pollute this water. You know there's this danger you fall to the water. So that's your revulsion. You know there is danger there, especially with fire. We don't have to keep on testing, putting our finger each time we see fire and say, oh yeah, it does burn, Well, you see fire, you know it burns. So you're not going to put your finger there because of this powerful knowledge called revulsion. And this goes deeper actually into other things. For example, you wouldn't want to do something silly with some other people, get into a fight with them, because it's going to cause suffering. That's revulsion. And it goes on like that. We don't want to cause pain to others because we are going to feel suffering too. You go deeper into this if you reflect in that way. And reflecting in that way, this passion arises. You begin to be able to stand away a bit. There is this social distance, if you like, to keep you safe, to keep you free from suffering, freedom. And with that, we will practice well. There is the destruction of mental influxes. This is a special term for arahatut, meaning you overcome all those things like ignorance and views and all this idea of wanting this kind of existence and that kind of existence. And finally, you overcome ignorance itself. Okay, so this is the dependent ending. Okay, this cycle here. Okay, here you have dependent arising, 12 o'clock. Here you have dependent ending. Okay, so here you can see here Upanishad Sutta as 1223 describes all this in some detail. And dependent arising is in 516. And here are the notes you can look up. Right? And now finally, we have slide 12. The three jewels are still with us. This is the most wonderful extension we have from the Buddha himself. The Buddha has extended himself to his teachings. He has extended his awakening to us through the Dhamma. And it is possible for us to still practice and learn all these things because the Buddha has managed successfully to make sure the Dhamma is extended through time, right down to us, through the suttas, through the forest monks, through the meditators. So in terms of the extended mind, we should reflect the Buddha as if the Buddha is our thoughts. You may even reflect, may my thoughts be Buddha. In other words, may I have the mind of wisdom like the Buddha. So this is to kind of inspire ourselves with this idea of the Buddha, to extend our mind to the Buddha's mind. You know, just like you see in Star Trek, this Spark the Vulcan says, my mind to your mind, my thoughts to your thoughts, like something like that. So you want to connect with the Buddha and also that our mind become Buddha. And then where the Dhamma is concerned, may my actions, may our actions be Dhamma. We act with a heart of wisdom. We wisely respond to others. The heart of compassion, even, if you like. So because the heart refers to compassion, right? So we have compassion and wisdom going together. And then you have the noble Sangha. May our speech be Sangha here. Here I'm not talking about those who wear robes or conventional Sangha. We are talking about the Sangha of the stream winners, once returner, non-returner, and arahats. So this is where we practice this extension of the Buddha through the Dhamma down to our time. To love life. To love life means to keep the precepts, because the first precept is loving life, protecting life, right? That is why we need to have lots of loving kindness to help us keep the precepts, the 5 precepts, not to kill, because everyone loves life. Then not to steal, not to lie, not to commit adultery, not to commit sexual misconduct, not to lie, not to get drunk and drugged, to live love. In other words, we should live giving this love to others. That's the second precept. Not stealing the properties of others, because that is their happiness. We give them that love so that they can live happily. And to give them the freedom, that's the third precept. And to give them the truth, give them the Dharma right now. Okay? And to keep ourselves mindful so that this mind can live happily and wholesomely and joyfully. So living in that way, we go closer to the noble Sangha, even though we may not become monks and nuns. Okay, so there we are. I hope you have some idea now, how you see Buddhism not just as a teaching in the book or closing our eyes. It is something very real, something out there. We are connected with the world out there, and the world out there is connected with us. And we awaken ourselves in this world itself. And then we move on from here into nirvana, so to speak. So it's not an easy topic, it's a very interesting topic. So think about it. watch the video again if you like, and there are a lot of materials to read. You can write to me if you want those learned journal articles or even some books on this. So just, and of course, you can download this charts. But I think we will do some correction of typos and download. You can download the corrected ones. Okay, we have 15 minutes question time now.
Oh, okay, thank you, Piya. Piya, can you please stop sharing your slides?
Okay, stop share. Okay.
Okay, that's good. Now, anybody has any question? You can put up your hand and ask the question live.
Now, the idea of studied mind sounds very interesting, but it's not that easy to grasp unless you spend time reflecting on it as you move around. One basic idea I noticed that the scholars often write, those who write about a studied mind, is to take the phone as an example, right? Handphone. So you have this handphone and you put your memory into this handphone. Many of the things you want to remember are in the handphone. So you have effectively transferred part of yourself, you have extended yourself into the phone. And basically, we do this to many other things around us. And you have this information all around us, right? So when we travel in the city, we look at the road names and so on. Well, because we are urbanized people. However, if you get an Aborigine boy from Australia, for example, he'd probably be lost in Singapore, just as we would be lost in the outbacks of Australia. Whereas this Aborigine boy or native in Australia, he will go into the open desert and he knows exactly where to go, which way to go, which way is home, by looking at the sky, by looking at the rocks and mountains, and I mean hills and bushes, you know. So how well we extend our minds out there will also help us move around freely, know the place better, live more happily. Okay, right. So any questions?
Patricia has a question, is it?
Yes. Well, I was thinking like, sorry, I try to talk English. Like for example, can you also say your mind is in your muscles? Like for example, you learn to walk without thinking, or to swim, or to bicycle, but your body remembers those things. And it is not like it is in your brain, like I have to do it like this, I have to do it like this. Once you know, you just know how to do it.
Well, there are two aspects. You can look at it in two ways. Firstly, I think we do need awareness, mindfulness and awareness when we connect with the world outside, when we extend our consciousness, when we extend our mind outside. Because remember, we are looking, what we are looking at out there is to help us remember things. Okay, this is a safe place. This is not a safe place. Or I like this place, or I don't like this place. So we have all this information out there. So you must have this mindfulness there. On the other hand, once you're familiar with the situation, like say when you're meditating, you don't need that kind of external awareness. You turn the awareness, the mindfulness, inside you. So there are two ways of doing this, right? So I wouldn't say we just kind of like absorb things around us, although that can happen, but it's not all the time like that. You have to be mindful of what's going on around you too. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Piya, and thank you, Patricia, for your question. Charles, you want to ask a question?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm very interested in consciousness as one of the 6 elements, and in meditation and in just living life and trying to practice.
Mm-hmm.
We know that we need to let go of things that are that you're constructed of, sankharas.
Mm.
And so, you know, in meditation, we try to, you know, gain jhana and be able to let go of the sort of joy and rapture and so on that comes up in early jhana, and, you know, gain a mind that's equanimous and just equanimous and mindful. And then there's those higher spheres or attainments, and we get into unbound space. And my understanding is that you let go of your personal space because it's not relevant. It's just a illusion, and you let go of your personal consciousness, but there's still boundless consciousness. And then, you know, the next one is nothingness. But I guess I want to be clear that my understanding is correct, that you no longer cling to a personal space or a personal consciousness, but that it's just an elemental consciousness that is, you know, out there, as you put it, and not something that you cling to or hang on to or try to make as part of yourself.
Yes.
Am I is that?
Yep. So far so good. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
The thing is, remember when we talk about consciousness, vijnana, in English, we always speak of being conscious of something. The of is always there. We don't have just consciousness by itself, right? It's always consciousness of something. In other words, there is always this extension. We're always connected with something, from the very gross in our ordinary worldly life to the very refined when we attain those formless states, or even nirvana is 7, while this arahat is still alive. There is this idea of nirvana. Okay, so remember at the start of this study, I mentioned that, you know, our meditation is a practice in renunciation. So we can see this whole idea that of Buddhist practice as refining our practice of renunciation. For example, when we keep the precepts, what are we renouncing? We are renouncing these 5 ways by which a body can be harmed through killing, through stealing, right? Other ways which the speech can be harmed, right? By false speech and so on. And then the last one, the 5th precept, is about not getting drunk and drugged. That is about the mind, right? We want the mind to be free of cloudedness and confusion. So we let go of this various violence against the body and speech. And then in meditation, what do we renounce? We renounce distractions. We started by renouncing sounds and things that come through our senses. And then as we progress, as our understanding of meditation deepens, our wisdom grows, we let go of more and more views, right? You find in the end, you don't need any views. You're just happy by yourself. right? But you can't be there until you reach that stage, of course. But that's the idea. So we let go of the body, we let go of the thoughts, and then in the formless states, you let go of consciousness until you come to a stage where there's nothing left. But remember, nothing also is an idea. And then you let go of the idea of nothing, and then you go on to the higher stage, which is called neither perception nor non-perception, where you cannot say, where you can't say there is consciousness or no consciousness. It's very subtle, right? So these are what the Buddha is telling us. We are learning to let go, learning to renounce, even the mind itself in stages. It's possible. We may not be able to reach such a high level of the formless states to renounce such a profound way, but it's quite sufficient for us to understand the joy of the dhyanas and to live our present life in such a way that we are able to say that we're keeping the precepts. And when we keep the precepts, that means we can meditate quite easily and comfortably, then we are happy. And then our lives are functional and we're able to connect with other people and be useful to them by teaching them, by helping them, or just being friends with them. In that sense, it's very simple to be a Buddhist, right? So, in fact, as I grow older now, I look at Buddhism, I say it's becoming simpler. We should kind of rise above all these views and things and understand more of wisdom and compassion, what they really mean, see? Right? That's how we are putting it. Okay, any other questions? 5 more minutes. Anything more, Charles?
Well, I'm still trying to, figure out if consciousness and mind are both the same. We're talking about the same thing, or whether there's a distinction between.
We're talking about the same thing.
Okay.
They overlap. I would say they overlap. I'm not saying like A equals A. They overlap. The mind is a very broad English term, and you find in Pali you've got chitta, mano, vijnana, and maybe you should read the article on these 3 terms, where the Buddha uses them in different ways to show how the mind functions. So there are words to show how the mind functions. They're not actual things, not actual parts. Once we try to think like the way the scientists think, I say, okay, can we be very specific about this? Can we be very technical about that? I think it's going to be very difficult. Where the sutta is concerned, I don't think the Buddha was technical. Very often, these 3 terms, chitta, mano, vijnana, they kind of overlap. So there's certain times you can't say, oh, which one is it now? Is it chitta or mano? It kind of, they all mean mind to us anyway. I mean, even vijnana can translate as mind. Sometimes sanya translate as consciousness. For example, in the 4th formless plane, the word used is sanya, okay, not vijnana, I see. So you have this kind of usages of words by the Buddha in describing the mind in non-technical ways. So we have to learn to use words and yet not be tied down to them. Right?
I think I asked the question because consciousness is one of the aggregates, and the aggregates are impermanent and they're suffering and they're not self.
That's right.
So you don't cling to them.
True.
So is that the same as, well, it's even hard to ask the question, but I've always thought of consciousness as just being something that sort of arises by being alive. And yet now I'm beginning to see it as more of an external thing that I grasp. And I guess I just want affirmation that consciousness is impermanent and that it is something not to be clung to. And that's sort of my understanding. And
okay, let me answer by a reflection. The way we look, our breath is life. When we do our breath meditation, we breathe in, But in order to live, we have to let go of the breath. We have to renounce the breath. We have to free the breath. What we take in, we give back. That's how we live. We cannot live by holding on to something. You got to give it back. Right? So there's this wonderful sharing. This is the extended life that we lead. So where's the mind? It's everywhere. Right? So in a sense that life also is everywhere, so to speak. I mean, we can't exist alone. We can't be what we are right now just by ourselves. We are what we are right now because there are others around, there are other beings, other people, society, and so on. Right? So this idea of that's why loving kindness is very important. It shows that we have to accept others as they are and then go from there. So there is this idea of accepting others. It's a very beautiful teaching there. So consciousness is that sort of thing. It connects us with everything else. And once we talk in that way, it also changes. People change. People are impermanent. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Piya, there's a question from JH Cole.
Okay.
In your PowerPoint, item 10 and 11, dependent arising and ending, there are unwholesome action and wholesome actions. But I remember in certain sutta, there is also a mention of action which is neither unwholesome nor wholesome. Where is this action or part of it in your chart? How do they fit in?
I think that they're not there because this neutral, what I call functional karma, is more to do with the arahats. The arahat does not create karma, so his actions are called functional karma. Kriya, they're not karma, it's just simply kriya. Okay, so they just happen. Right? So it's not part of dependent arising in that sense. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any
All
more
right.
question?
Have you taken the photograph?
Wait, Patricia has a question.
Oh, okay. Yes, please.
During the meditation,
Patricia, can you speak closer to your microphone?
do you hear me now?
Yes.
During the meditation instruction, I think you said make the spaces between the breaths stronger. Why is that and how to do it?
I'm sorry, I can't catch your last part.
Why? I think you said make the spaces between the breath, make them stronger. My question is why and how to do it.
The spaces.
I think I heard you said make them stronger.
When you reach the third stage, the third stage of breath meditation is spaces. That's when, because your concentration is better, you begin to notice the spaces better. The spaces begin to become stronger in the sense they're more noticeable, and they also tend to lengthen. And sometimes if you're good, they can last as long as an hour, you know. I mean, so if you just learn, in other words, we learn to let go of all the senses. So sounds don't trouble us, smells, taste, touch don't trouble us. Then we are focused in this so-called space. But actually, the mind is focused. The space is just what's around us, what's in our minds, if you like. So that's one way of saying it. So that
you don't have to, but because I think I heard you say make them stronger. But if I listen to you now, you don't have to do anything.
Well, yeah. Well, you cannot actually make the space stronger by itself. You can notice it better by basically letting go of it, so to speak, by simply smiling at it, by doing nothing. I think I did say by doing nothing. And you find this space is there and you just Feel it. Yes, you feel it, and feeling, you don't need to take much action. You just be that space. And that's what will hold you maybe for half an hour, 1 hour, in a very wonderful, very regenerative kind of healing way.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, that's nice. I think our time is up, right, Rana?
Yes, yes. Okay. We take a photo first. Please turn on your videos.
Right, a beautiful forest scene. Forest is a very beautiful extension of our joy and happiness. Sometimes it's so difficult to talk about something so important, so beautiful, like the extended consciousness, because it is something we must feel for ourselves. Remember, the Buddha is always with nature, very often sitting under a tree. So we're going to spend that kind of time in the fresh and healing nature, calming ourselves, doing our exercise to stay healthy so that we can practice the Dhamma and teach it. With those thoughts in mind, let us rejoice in this present moment where we're able to gather together and share this understanding of the extended mind that the Buddha himself teaches in not so many words. So send your kind thoughts to your loved ones, to yourself, to all those people who are important to you. May they be well, may they be happy. For me, I especially send my thoughts to you that you may be well and happy, be at peace with yourself, and grow wiser as you study the Dhamma. And finally, let us show our gratitude to the three jewels, because of whom we are gathered here and growing wiser as a result. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Sadhu,
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 sadhu, sadhu.
sadhu.